Hello, I'm Bob Toomey, and welcome to Around the Old Town. We have a great opportunity for people today. We have a video club from the Abington High School joining us. We have some lovely students from the Woodsdale School. We have State Senator Keenan and John Cashman from the Rockland Ice Rink, so it should be a great day. Let's get into this right now. With me today specifically are ladies from the Woodsdale School, Miss Morgan McNeil-Berry. Nice to have you here, Morgan.
Thank you.
And Miss Jessica Barry. Nice to have you, Jessica. And I know why you're here, but would you mind telling our audience why you ladies are gracing us with your presence?
We're promoting Care Center.
Care Center. What is Care Center?
We help like people to benefit others. Yeah. So we do all projects to benefit others.
And what any projects in specific, in particular, you're working on right now?
We're helping the troops in Afghanistan.
Yes.
That's a great cause. They can
Yeah.
use all the help they can get. Anything in particular that you're looking for, or anything you're collecting, or?
Well, there's like different kind of makeup and different kind of hygiene.
So like toiletries, like
Yes.
toothbrushes and toothpaste. And,
Yes.
And then some entertainment things like DVDs and
Nerf balls
games.
and
Oh, sure. And board games.
Yeah.
Right. Excuse me. Any food supplies or anything? Or?
Oh yes, you can have canned foods
yeah.
and coffee, popcorn and packages.
How about some chocolate? Should we send any chocolate over? It might melt. Or?
Yeah, it might
Yeah.
melt.
Oh, so you want non-perishable things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I know anybody likes chocolate. I'm a chocolate lover, but I think by the time it got over to Afghanistan, it would either be gone or melted, so it wouldn't even be worth eating. And I owe with the soldiers, and Joe Colantoni is the veterans agent for Abington, and I know he's been involved in some group and fundraising and whatnot for the soldiers, and now the Woodsdale School is doing it. The collection started about a week or so ago, I understand?
Yes.
And when will it stop?
This Friday, February 3rd.
And is there a way that Abington residents or friends of Abington residents can drop stuff off to Woodsdale? Or?
If you go to Woodsdale, there's going to be a box right outside, and you just drop all the food items that you have, and you're all set.
Oh, so during school hours. So that'd be approximately 8 a.m. to 2:30?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And who's helping you? Is an adult helping you coordinate this? Or?
Mrs. Sullivan and
Mrs. Green.
yeah, Mrs.
Mrs.
Grady.
Sullivan, Mrs. Christine Sullivan, formerly of
Yep.
Center School, now at Woodsdale.
Yes.
And Mrs. Grady, formerly of Center School, now at Woodsdale.
Yes.
And Mrs. Sullivan is one of the administrators, I believe.
Yes.
Mrs. Grady is a 6th grade teacher.
Yes.
And your teacher, though, is
Mr.
Mr.
Lodge.
Lodge.
Mr. Lodge. Oh.
He's awesome.
Yes.
He really is.
Yes.
Yes, he's one of the few male teachers at that level, too.
Yeah.
And he does an awesome job. I'm familiar enough with it. I'm at Woodsdale School frequently substituting, so he does. And Mrs. Dr. G is 6th grade.
Yes.
And Mrs. Yarsitis, and it's a
Yep.
great group.
Mrs. Riley.
Mrs. Riley, yes. Now, you've done other projects as well, I understand. Remember with the coats or something? Or?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we made baby blankets last year actually, and we're gonna do it again.
This is my first year, so I haven't really experienced much
Okay.
with any of the projects. So
Sure.
it's really fun, actually.
But on the baby blankets, I wasn't familiar with that. Can you just give us some?
Well, we make our own blankets from scratch, and we give them to the neonatal intensive care unit at South Shore Hospital.
That's great. And now the coats, that was a pretty successful drive as well.
Yeah, it was very good. We got a lot of coats.
Right, and it's for all ages, right? It's not just kids.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
for everybody.
Right. Well, these ladies are working very hard to help our society and help the soldiers in particular, which we have to help us out. They're helping us out. They have the ability to have these shows and walk the streets safely and freely because of the contribution the soldiers give to us and to the country. I can't thank you enough, ladies. You're off to a great start because it's very important that generations realize they have to give. You know, so many people in society are takers. You know, gimme, gimme, gimme. And you ladies at a very young age are learning the importance of organizing your time and trying to coordinate and to help others that aren't as fortunate. I mean, most of those soldiers, I'm sure, would much rather be sitting here talking to you or talking to Sean or Jack or anybody and having a beer or a drink or something, having a nice sit-down meal. But instead, they're up in the mountains of Afghanistan where it's freezing cold, or during the summer it could be very hot, and eating K rations and eating food that's, you know, you and I would
Yeah.
be upset about eating, and yet they're suffering through it, and you guys, ladies, are trying to make it a worthwhile endeavor for them. So I can't thank you enough, and in behalf of those soldiers, I'm sure they want to thank you. Now, they're going to end Friday,
Yes.
at about 2 o'clock. So if anyone's in the neighborhood, they want to stop by the Woodsdale School, it's open from roughly 8 a.m. to 2:30 or so. There will be a box outside. Please, if you feel free to drop off any canned goods, any toiletries, any board games, things, cans that pop open as opposed to ones that have to be use a can opener. Any green, dark green, like fatigues or T-shirts, but anything that can be used. And Jeff Coombs is Jeff Coombs.
Foundation.
Yes,
Yeah.
Foundation, thank you. See, the ladies
yeah.
have more experience than I already. The Jeff Coombs Foundation is a sponsor of this too, and,
Yep.
and I know Christy is given an awful lot and people have given to her.
Yeah.
But she does a tremendous job with
They're-
all her charities.
Their foundation is giving us like the funds that we can actually do care center.
Yes.
Oh, so I'm not surprised. She gives back an awful lot. Well, I can't thank you enough, ladies, for all you've done, and hopefully in the future you'll be doing more, and keep this charity mindset at work, because Abington, unfortunately, we've had a share of bad luck in a lot of situations where we've had to raise funds and help people out for different reasons, and you're off to the right track, and keep up the good work. Thank you very much for coming on. Jessica and Miss Barry. I got Miss Barry and Miss Barry mixed up,
Yeah.
but it's Morgan and Jessica. I'm sorry, Morgan and Jessica. So
Barry.
thanks again, ladies. If you'd like to see this show, this portion, we have other guests coming on. You can go to abingtoncam.org, O-R-G, and you can see this portion of the show. You go to that site, you click on Around the Old Town and see the portion. I'm sure you ladies will have plenty to talk about
I'll probably
when you
see
leave
it
here.
over and
Yeah, call your
over
friends
and
and
over and
family and
over.
tell them, right. And thanks again to the Coombs Foundation for sponsoring the Care Center. And thank you, Mr. McCurtain, and in particular, Mrs. Sullivan and Mrs. Grady at the Woodsdale. Thank you. We're going to have either John Cashman or Senator Keenan coming on next. Thank you very much. abingtoncam.org.
Oh, Mal's going to be a power forward for a professional hockey team.
That's what it takes. Good afternoon. Welcome to Around the Old Town. I'm Bob Toomey. With me today is our good friend John Cashman. John, thanks for coming in, pal.
You're welcome, Bob.
I know you're very, very busy schedule, so I do appreciate you coming in. Well, when you run your own business, it's you work for yourself, and it's hard to make time to spend time with us, so I appreciate that.
Well, no problem at all. It's a pleasure being here.
The reason I asked you to come on, and a lot of people don't know what John's done for many people, but one of the things I'm familiar with is we worked, the Bruins were in town recently, Alex Bazanson, the HUG group, H-U-G, Help Us Give, and John always has to have things scheduled at the rink in order to pay the bills, etc., and provide time for hockey players and skaters, etc. And John was very able and willing to change his schedule around because the Bruins date was about the only date in the next 3 months that worked. And because of that, John was able to reschedule it, and we were able to have a very, very successful fundraiser on behalf of HUG. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for that, John, because
You're welcome.
it really helps get everybody roll. If without that, it was probably dead in the water, so thank you. Another major donation or consideration that John has given through the Rockland Ice Rink, the pro shop there, is John's been responsible for providing the Abington hockey team with their uniforms. And I don't know what you know about hockey, but hockey equipment, hockey uniforms, etc., runs into major, major money. So because of John and the pro shop, they were able to provide the high school students with uniforms. And again, I can't thank you enough. And I don't know, you don't want to toot your own horn, and I'd like you to say something about that, please.
Well, if people that don't know out there, the Abington High School hockey program has been co-oping with East Bridgewater High School for the past 12 years. The MIA said last year that this would be that last season was going to be the last season for the co-op. So looking forward at the burden that hockey can cause the school system, I decided that as far as the ice rink went, the best donation I could make was to provide uniforms for the Abington High School, both home and away. They did have plenty of uniforms with Abington East Bridgewater that were no longer going to be able to be used, so that was my way of just showing appreciation back to the town that I grew up in.
Well, it's a great donation. I really, and I'm not a hockey player, my kids aren't, but I know many of the youth in Abington are. And really, on behalf of them, I can't thank you enough, because these families, ice time and skates and equipment. It runs into some serious dough. And because of your ability to provide these uniforms, saves the town significant money. Because we have user fees already, what, $400, $250, I think, and depending, and that cuts costs dramatically.
Yeah.
So, while I have you, just do a little plug for the rink. Can you tell me, obviously that's the home rink for the Abington High School?
Yes.
Okay.
Abington High School, yes.
And I've had the privilege of going to some of the games there, and it's a sitting room only, trying to find parking's next to impossible, only because there's so many people that have been attending. And I believe this Saturday is Pack the House.
Oh, no, last
Okay.
Saturday was Pack the House.
Okay.
Yeah, they played Rockland High School. It was a nice win for the Green Waves. So, if they can keep it up, they should be going to the tournament this year and looking good doing it.
How was the team in general, like in the league, and what's their record? And
Well, I think their record's like maybe 7-4, 8-4. They're doing very well for a first-year team. I think every kid that tried out made this. That tried out for the team made the team. A lot of good kids. Our cameraman back there is one of the left wingers on the team.
Mr. Jack Malafronte?
Mr. Jack Malafronte doing quite well out there, and it's good to see the Abington jerseys on again. I'll tell you, I played for Abington High back in the '80s, and with a 12-year absence, I'm just glad they didn't drop the program.
Right.
But having Abington back alone has been really nice for me personally and for the rink as well.
And for the town, too.
And for the town.
It builds pride, you're right.
Correct.
How many guys are on the team, roughly? Like 15?
I think there's 20,
Oh, great.
20 or 21 kids that tried out for the team, and everyone got a sweater, and and they're doing well. They're on the ice 3 or 4 days a week at practice, usually two games a week, and they've improved every week. A good bunch of kids, and I see them all the time at work, and
Sure.
it's really nice. They're a polite bunch, and they're doing
Now,
great.
because of the rink's obligations, financial and everything, what time frame do these kids usually have
Well,
to be there?
Abington practices with us 2 days a week in the afternoon, 2:20 to 3:20. But they also practice in the mornings at Bridgewater, which was today, Monday mornings, and they also have a Thursday night practice at AZF rink in Brockton. So you really got to kind of find a place to have, if you can get ice somewhere at good
Take
times,
advantage of it.
You take it no matter where it is.
Right, exactly.
And the
They will
games are
in fact.
usually on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So I think they're playing this Wednesday versus Mashpee down in Hyannis. And then they're back home again Saturday night at 5:30 versus Norwell, which will be a big test for the team. If they can win that game, they're going to be
Sitting
in
well
good
for-
shape.
good.
Yeah, very good shape.
Roughly, how many games left in the season, roughly?
I think they got about between 6 and 8 games left in the season. And I think they just need 2 more wins and they qualify for the tournament.
Super.
And it'll be a great accomplishment for them to, come right out of the gate, make the tournament the first year.
Right, first
So,
year out.
absolutely.
Who's coaching?
The head coach is Brian Smith. He grew up in Randolph, good hockey guy. And his assistant coach is Billy Hingston, another good hockey guy.
Sure.
So I get along with them very well, and the kids seem to respond to him pretty well,
Right.
so.
I'm glad to hear that. After all this with the East Bridgewater thing, was an MIAA rule that because...
Yeah, I think the MIAA says, if you can field a varsity team and a full junior varsity team, it's time to split up. So what they want to do is they want to try and build hockey programs, but they don't want to have an excess of players. So that's kind of the mandate they set. They did extend it a couple years due to the, I think, the financial pressures from the down economy. They did let them continue it. I think it was either a year or 2 additionally, but at the end of the day, the MIAA would like to see the single towns that can support a team.
Right. Do it.
Stay alone. So.
Sure. What other events do you have at the rink? I know obviously Abington hockey. And
Yeah, we have a lot of high school hockey. We have junior hockey there, which is kids from all over the country, play at the rink, and they compete all over New England. Figure skating, learn to skate. We have a little bit of everything down there.
the figure skating part interests me. I believe Katie Hayden, was she involved with that? Or?
Yes, Katie is my skating director. She's been the skating director at Rockland for 25, 30 years now, and she's a very good friend of mine, and I know her husband's a very good friend of yours.
Yes, and yours
It's
as
a
well.
small world.
So it is. And Bob Hayden, the third, actually, I saw at your rink the other night.
Yep.
And he was, I don't know if he was coaching or his kid was playing.
Yep, Bobby runs the Hockey Jumpstart, which is basically an introduction to play hockey. And Bobby also coaches one of the Bay State Breaker youth hockey teams that
That's the
his
team
son
that was
competes
there.
in.
Yes.
So Bobby's a regular at the rink, and and another kid I've known my whole life.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And he actually ran for Congress on the Republican Party last election. And he's willing to go out and give it his all and give it a shot because he believes in trying to do the right thing. And
Yeah, threw his name in the hat. Yeah.
right. It's tough to get out there and do that. While I mentioned Bob, our good friend Bob Hayden, who the second, is not doing as well physically as we'd like, and I hope he gets well soon. He's, as you say, he's a dear friend and just one of the most stand-up guys I've ever met in my entire life. And he has a tough time right now fighting an illness, but we're all supporting him. And you know, I couldn't say anything more about him if he was my own father. He's
a good
just
man.
one of the best. Well, again, John, I can't thank you enough, especially all the stuff you've done that I don't even know about, and you've told me not to get into it, so I won't. But all the help you've given us and the community and the high school team in particular, thank you very, very much.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. No, I'm glad you came on. It was like trying to pull teeth to get him come on. So thank you very much. If you'd like to see this segment, go to abingtoncam.org. And you can get to see the show again and tell your friends about it. And thank you very much. We have the Audiovisual Club, I guess, from the high school. We're going to talk about them. And our next guest will be Senator John Keenan. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
Hello, and welcome to another segment of Around the Old Town. I'm Bob Toomey, and with me today is Senator John Keenan. John, thanks for coming back
Nice
again.
to see you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
We actually had the privilege of working together the other night at the Abington Trivia for the 300th centennial, the third centennial.
Yes.
And Christina Howe's here with the Media Guide group, and her family and the firefighters were kind enough to let me sit at their table. I think I brought the average down, unfortunately.
That makes two of us.
Yeah, your table didn't do as well
Our
either.
table did well. I'm not so sure how much I contributed.
Well, you're right, because in my case, the firefighters excelled, and I just kind of hung on. Yeah, that's a good choice. I'll go with that. Well, on some important issues. I know you're the chairman of the Substance Abuse Mental Health.
Yes.
And there's always something going on with that. Can you tell us what's the
There
update?
is. Yeah, in fact, tomorrow, which is the 31st, I guess, they're going to have a press conference. The Senate President called a press conference to release some legislation that we've been working on.
Perfect.
And started working on it just about 7 or 8 months ago, and have worked on it pretty extensively, meeting with different groups. And the legislation is aimed at educating the public about the dangers of prescription drug medications, and then putting some protocols in place that will help physicians limit the number of prescription painkillers that are out there in medicine chest or people's cabinets. So the press conference will be tomorrow, and then Thursday it's my hope that the Senate will take up the legislation, and hopefully we'll get it through the Senate on Thursday and get it over to the House, and my hope is that they will move on it quickly as well and get it on the governor's desk.
Oh, that's fantastic. It makes you feel proud. I know when you work that hard. And
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. Representative Liz Malio is the co-chair. She's the chair on the House side of the committee, and she's been great to work with. Mike Carr, who works in the committee, has been fantastic. And then Rick Collins in my office, who's an Abington
resident,
has done some great work on the research with the bill and bringing together all the various parties that are interested in it. So it's been a long effort, but I think we've covered most of the bases as far as who we had to meet with to get the information we needed.
Sure.
And I think the end product is something that hopefully will make a difference. And if we can get those prescription painkillers out of cabinets, out of the medicine chest, hopefully we'll save some lives.
I remember specifically using those examples when we talked the last time, how a lot of the families, they're not going out to the local drug dealer and getting drugs. They're going into their parents' medicine chest.
Yeah, all the studies show that where children, in particular children, are exposed to those medications for the first time, it's either from their own home, from a friend's home. It's not purchasing it from a dealer.
Right.
As they perhaps become dependent or addicted, then they progress down because they need the pills. They'll progress down and perhaps buy them off of a dealer.
Sure.
And then the real sad, unfortunate part of the progression is that they end up oftentimes on heroin because heroin is so much cheaper than the medications. So our thought is if we can limit the supply, and we're going to do the education piece, we'll also have part of it where we're going to require physicians and the various medical associations to get together and come up with best practices to address how physicians are prescribing, for them to come up with the protocols, because they know best.
Right, they deal with it.
Right, and they're making great progress, but we really want to push them down the road to coming up with some protocols that we will then make regulations. And we think that'll work. And we also want to have them enroll in a program that already exists. It's optional right now for physicians to enter what they call the prescription monitoring program. We're going to require it. Good. And then once they're in that program, they have to utilize it. So before they prescribe a heavy narcotic for somebody, they're going to have to run a screen to see what that person's drug use history is.
Sure.
And they might be able to notice something and say, we've given you 3 30-day prescriptions or 3 15-day prescriptions in the last week and a half. We should work on this.
Right.
And if the person needs some treatment, get the person the treatment. And if the person's in legitimate pain, come up with a way to treat that legitimate pain.
Sure.
So hopefully, again, the legislation will pass and it'll make a difference.
You specifically, again, used that example last time we talked, because I remember like a night or two after we talked, sure enough, on the television, there was all the Channel 4 News I-Team or something about these for lack of a better term, a junkie, an abuser of payments, doctor shopping. Like you said, this doctor didn't know 2 days ago he was over at this doctor getting 30 pain pills or
Right.
Percocets.
Yeah, so these are some protocols that we'll put in place that will hopefully stop that. And again, it's to prevent people who are already addicted from doctor shopping, and it's also an effort to prevent people from going down the path to dependency and addiction. And it happens all the time. I'd hear the stories out and about. I hear them in Abington and Quincy and Braintree, Rockland, Holbrook. For whatever reason, this area is pretty highly concentrated. But you'd hear the stories that somebody hurt their back, hurt their arm, and they went to a physician and were prescribed a painkiller.
Right.
And for certain individuals, they just, they've got that receptor that reacts to that painkiller, and the next thing you know, they're heading down the path
Right,
to
they're
dependency. And it's through a legitimate prescription at the outset.
Sure.
And so we're trying to put gateways in place, that they go to the next gateway when they see a different physician, and give that a chance at each step to see how they're doing basically on the medication and to prevent that dependency.
Well, because you said they're not initially drug abusers or
No.
anything, right? They're legitimate pains and concerns.
Right. Yeah, the image used to be that it was an inner city junkie.
Right.
And nowadays it's kids, it's adults, it's seniors, it's people, our neighbors, our friends, our relatives, our
Right.
brothers and sisters, you name it,
I was just going to say
that unfortunately get addicted to these painkillers, and it's just a terrible impact then on the family.
right, affect all aspects of our life, whether
Right.
young, old, poor, rich, it affects in everyone in
It
one way or
does.
another. And as you said, family members. And
Right.
well,
So,
I'm glad to hear that that's making progress, and maybe Thursday, by the time you see this, maybe it already enacted, and
right, that's what we're hoping.
I hope so. And the good
So,
work. And
great,
again,
thank
as you
you.
said, you're bringing all the different parties, because what you do does affect other people and like doctors and whatnot. And it's good to have their input. So
Oh.
look, you're going to end up dealing with this. How can we make it easier? What can we do to make sure this is going to work for you as well?
We met with doctors group, dentist group. We met with border registration. We met with prescription monitoring people. We met with law enforcement. Chief Majewski here in Abington. We spent some time with him, and he detailed what he was dealing with here. We met with DAs, parents. We were up in Lowell, Gloucester, Lawrence, with Learn to Cope, which is a parents group. So we have a page that lists the number of people and entities and organizations that we met with, and we think we left no stone unturned.
Sounds like you
in
haven't, good.
bringing everything together. And not everybody's happy with the legislation.
No, but
But I think that's the way it works. There's some groups that think it's putting too much responsibility on them at the expense of other groups.
Sure.
You can't make everybody happy, but we think we've struck a reasonable balance where it will be effective.
And hope, I'm just going to say effective, because really what the concern is these people that are trapped in this terrible predicament, and
Right.
sometimes not for their own choosing. Like you said, the receptors need that. And
Right.
And you mentioned the chief. Abington, as you know, there's 4 major thoroughfares. We have Route 18, Route 123, Route 58, 139. So a lot of people traffic through it. And Deputy Chris Cutter and Chief Majewski and all the patrolmen and detectives, they do a very good job. And we have drugs here like every other town. But I can honestly say that the chief, they're very proactive.
They are, and he outlined what he's doing, how he's trying to address it, and it keeps him busy.
Oh, no doubt about it.
But they're on top of it. They try to respond as best as they can. And a lot of towns aren't even aware of it. They basically deny that there's a problem. And every city and town in the Commonwealth has a problem with it.
No doubt about it.
And the chief here recognizes that. He's not putting his head in the sand. He's working on it. The same with the town officials, the town manager. They're all aware of the problem, the school department. And so really they're working together on it. And hopefully this legislation will assist them as they try to solve the problem.
Well, best of luck.
Thank
And,
you.
We're with you,
Thanks.
of course, on that. Like any topic with the State House, how's the budget?
Well, the governor introduced his budget. It's about a $32.3 billion. A million would be nice, but it's about a $32.3 billion budget. The governor has introduced it. It has a series of cuts in it. It has a series of fee increases and new revenue proposals within it. It is a better budget situation than last year. Last year we were looking to plug a several billion-dollar gap. This year it's a little over $1 billion gap that we have to close. So the idea is some new revenue He's looking to draw some funds from the rainy day account, the stabilization account. Again, looking at some cutbacks and some reorganizations in some departments to realize some savings. So we're in the process of taking a good look at the budget, see what it means for school aid, see what it means for all those things that are important to towns like Abington. And then we will begin our work on the budget on the Senate side. We just scheduled our meeting with the Senate Ways and Means Chair. So we'll go in with our list of priorities, and we always, this is only my second year.
No, but you're there.
But we will go in and we'll argue again for local aid because that's so critical for the schools and for a lot of the other things that the town does. So we'll present our case for additional local aid. It's an uphill fight every year to get it. The goal will be, at a minimum, to keep local aid the same. The governor's numbers basically do that. His local aid projection for the town of Abington keeps it essentially the same. There is a net decrease, and it's interesting, the net decrease, from what I can tell looking at it, is that the town is spending a little more money on out-of-town tuitions for charter schools and under the school choice plan. But otherwise, local aid looks like it's going to remain about level. And the way it worked last year was we funded it at this level and then made up money at the end of the year from the prior year surplus. And that's the plan for this year as well. And the goal is to at least level fund local aid in Abington and in Quincy and the other towns in the district.
Sure. You mentioned the charter schools and putting money there. I don't think a lot of our viewers are familiar with the way that the money comes in and goes out on that. Would you mind elaborating on that?
Sure. The way that works in the towns is you get what they call cherry sheets. And it's local aid, and it lists all the receipts for the town. And included in that are the education funding, which is Chapter 70 money. And then there's a second page of the sheet of the charges that the town is charged certain items. And if a student in the town of Abington goes to a charter school, well, then Abington is charged on its sheets from the state a certain amount for that student to go to the charter school or to go to another school under the school choice plan.
Like South Shore VOTAC.
And that's a different one as well.
Sorry.
They have, yeah, but same idea,
Okay.
exact same idea. And so they work those numbers through the local aid, what they call cherry sheets. And they're called cherry sheets because they used to come out on a cherry-colored sheet of paper. And so those numbers show up. And from what I can tell, that's where the difference is between last year's local aid figure that was ultimately provided and what the governor's proposing this year. And again, the House and the Senate will introduce their own versions.
Sure.
And we'll argue for more local aid. But the governor and the chair of the Ways and Means, or the governor's staff, chair of Ways and Means on the Senate and chair of Ways and Means on the House, they've already reached a consensus revenue figure. So they know what pot of money they have.
Right.
It's now a question of how they
divide
divide it.
Sure.
Right.
You mentioned Chapter 90, and again, our viewers, they hear a lot of numbers and they hear a lot of the law. Chapter 90, anything new on-
Chapter 90, they're looking to level fund that. That's money that's used for roads and sidewalks in some cases, but there's different formulas that they use as to how they can use it. And it's the same thing. We'll look to try to keep that as near level funded as possible because the roads need it. It's interesting, we've had such a mild winter.
Right.
And there weren't any potholes for a long time. And then when we had that one cold spell,
Yes.
just like
Cracked,
that,
right.
potholes came up. You know, the asphalt contracts, then when it's cold, then all of a sudden it gets warm again, and up comes the potholes.
Right.
And so it looked like we were going to escape it for the winter.
what I thought, too.
Last week, all of a sudden, they just showed up.
Expanded, you're right. They
Right,
showed up
so,
and, yeah.
But Chapter 90 money we'll use, hopefully, to continue paving efforts throughout all the towns. It's pretty critical.
Oh, no doubt about it, because the towns depend on that. The
Right.
snow removal, how about that? How's snow removal accounts?
Snow removal accounts in most of the towns seem to be doing pretty well because we have had a
One
pretty
storm,
mild winter.
right, yeah.
But they still have to go out and they have to stockpile their salt and their sand if they're using both. Some are moving to an all-salt position, so to speak, that they're using more salt than sand. They've also made the switch, a lot of towns, and I don't know if Abington has, where they use a brine mix on the streets prior to a storm coming in.
Oh, wow.
And it makes the salt work more effectively.
Sure.
I know some of the towns do that. So they still have to purchase those supplies. They still
Right.
have to get the equipment in gear and get it all in order. So they're spending money even before the first snowfall
Sure.
comes. So we've been lucky. There's been minimal snowfall, minimal icing situations, but nonetheless, most of those budgets will, if we get another snowstorm, most of those budgets will be hitting what they have. And snow and ice is unique in municipal finance because it's one of the accounts that you can deficit spend on.
That's right, I didn't know
And then
that.
you carry it over to the next year, and you can either fund it out of your stabilization account, out of what they call free cash, or you can fund it when you establish your tax levy, your tax rate the following year. So it does allow you to carry it as a deficit. And the reason is that winters here are very
Can't predict it,
unpredictable.
right, exactly.
And interesting, you can carry it, but you really can't use any leftover in a separate account for snow and ice unless you've got special legislation. You can move it into a stabilization account.
Right.
But unless you've set up a special account for snow and ice, the money reverts back and the following year becomes the following year's free cash, or you use it at the end of the year to balance out different accounts.
So yeah, it's nothing I didn't know.
That's kind of interesting how it works.
Right. I'm trying to think of any other state, well, Patriots, of course.
Yeah, Patriots off to Indianapolis, which is great. Reading all the press accounts has been exciting. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm feeling pretty good about the Patriots this year. I think it's the year for them again.
I hope so.
And it's a great game against the Giants. I'm
trying to think of what else. There was something at the State House I thought that.
There's quite a bit going on.
Sure.
They still in the press is the whole 3 strikes
legislation
issue. The Senate passed legislation that basically contained the 3 strikes, the Melissa's bill, which Les Gossel has been very involved in, and the Senate also did sentencing reform at the same time. It went over to the House, and the House has passed the 3 strike part of it, the habitual offender part of it, but they haven't done anything on sentencing reform yet.
Okay.
And the governor at his State of the State address, I think it was last week or might have been a week before that, said that he won't sign something unless it contains both. So right now, representatives from the House and representatives from the Senate are meeting, and they should come together on a more comprehensive bill where they agree on most things, on everything in the bill, and then it will go off to the governor. That was an interesting debate.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's what the governor had proposed is decreasing a lot of the drug offenses for small amount, nonviolent drug possession cases, because oftentimes they end up going to the county jails or sometimes the state prisons, and the cost is enormous.
Sure.
And I tend to agree, if they're nonviolent, first-time, low-quantity drug offenses, I think we're better off getting the people into treatment. It's much less expensive than incarcerating them, and it gives them a chance to get back on their feet and get over the mistake that they made.
Right.
Where I disagree with some of the sentencing reform is that they wanted to lessen the sentences on some of the heavier drug cases. And having been out and about and seeing what occurs in the community with prescription painkillers, with heroin, with cocaine, it just does a job on families and communities. And if somebody is playing at that level, so to speak, if they're dealing those types of drugs, and if they're dealing those types of drugs and have gotten caught once and then twice, my feeling is that
They've been doing it many other times
they're
and never
gonna do it
got caught, and they will do
exactly.
it. Right.
And it's time to punish them,
Right.
And to keep them off the streets. All for helping people who make that first mistake.
Sure.
And sometimes even that second mistake when it becomes a question of addiction and everything else. But
Right.
when you're dealing drugs, not
Sure.
even perhaps using them,
Right.
not even an addict, but you're dealing drugs, you're selling something that it's like a loaded gun,
Right.
and it's having such an impact on the community that I wasn't quite ready to say that those sentences should be decreased.
Another thing you mentioned was the violent aspect of it, and I tend to agree with that. When I was a fingerprint expert, a couple of times I went to federal court because I had to fingerprint a person who was charged with these crimes and convicted, and I had to look at the records of those arrests and convictions and make sure they matched the fellow who was in front of the court that day. Because you don't want Jordan Rodriguez, Joe Toomey, or whatever to get sentenced because it was another name, so I actually had to do the fingerprints. But the thing, my concern was, of course, the violence. Like you say, he's got a guy selling 2 J's and gets arrested for it. Well, that's a strike. Then you get a guy, the same guy 2 years later, and he's got 2 OxyContins because he wasn't in his name on his prescription. He's got 2 strikes and hasn't done any violent crime, and you're going to send him away for 10 years.
Right.
You got, like you said, you got to decide if there's rehabilitation.
Yeah, that's a person where you say, if you've got a problem,
Right.
we'll help you, we'll get you into treatment. We have to make sure we commit the resources to the treatment programs.
Sure.
But you get them into treatment and you get them back contributing to society rather than costing you $35,000, $40,000 a year in jail. And meanwhile, somebody who's a hardened criminal might be released earlier than normal, earlier than planned, because there just isn't enough room
Right.
and the expenses are so great. So it's finding that balance.
Sure.
But clearly if there's violence involved, large quantities of drugs on a continuous basis, because what happens is, it just fuels other crimes as well.
Exactly.
A lot of the larcenies, you've been in the business, a lot of the larcenies, a lot of the assault and batteries, all those types of crimes that you see in the district courts in particular,
Right.
are 90% of the times
Just to get money for drugs.
related.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And their own families. They rob from their own families.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a tragedy.
You made me
at all.
think, talking about Norfolk, made me think Norfolk County. I remember, if I heard correctly, the governor was thinking of maybe shutting down MCI Norfolk.
Well, he does have he's looking at some reforms in the correction system. MCI Norfolk is one, I believe, that they're kind of looking at to do some things. It was interesting because I was out at MCI Norfolk probably about a month ago, meeting with inmates on the whole substance abuse issue and early release issue, and it's a pretty well maintained facility.
Yeah.
Most of the individuals who are there are lifers, and I was talking with the corrections officers and the administrators there, and it's interesting. It's kind of the opposite of what you would expect. Lifers take a lot of pride in where they're living because they know they're going to live there for a long time.
Sure.
And so the grounds were immaculate. The buildings were old but well maintained, very clean, and they're very particular, the inmates are, about what goes on. They ask to plant flowers. So it's an old facility, but it looks to be pretty well maintained.
Right.
How that all shakes out is uncertain. It's the same thing that there's a proposal to close the Taunton State Hospital.
I heard that too.
The Department of Mental Health is looking, and Public Health is looking to close that because they're opening a facility up in Worcester. And we're going out to Worcester this Friday to look at the new facility. We're in the process of scheduling a trip down to Taunton to look at that facility. My concern is, do we have enough beds as it is for people who have acute or chronic mental health, behavioral health issues? And before we go closing a facility, one, we have to make sure we have enough beds so that people who need them can go to those beds.
Sure.
And if there are people within that facility, and the estimate is that there may be about 200 in Taunton that are ready for release back into the community, into homes, then we have to make sure we have the support services there.
Sure.
Otherwise, what happens is they're going to be a South Shore Hospital, Jordan Hospital,
Exactly
or
right.
Quincy Medical Center in the emergency room.
Right.
So if we're going to save some money by closing a facility, we have to reinvest a portion of it, not all of it, but a portion of it in the community services, and we have to make sure that we have beds in place for those who need it.
Yeah, sure. Oh,
So it's going to be very interesting.
Right. I can't think of any other state-related issues or political issues that are on the table now.
We were just talking that May White has passed away, which
yes, it's sad.
yeah, had quite an impact on the city of Boston.
No doubt about it. And the whole economy, the whole New England economy, really, because he had the great cities of the world, and the mayors from different cities used to come in for different events. Kevin was at one point a vice presidential nominee, and I know that he was at one point being groomed with Jimmy Carter to take over the
Right.
Democratic Party for 1976, and because of busing, he got left behind, and Jimmy Carter, as you know, became the president. He was in charge of
Right.
the platform committee, and so that's a sad day, and May White was very close to my family, and I know your family knew him, and it's just, it's a sad day, but we move on, and we have new generations, people like yourself taking over, and I hope everything's going well, and I really wish you the best of luck on Thursday,
Well, thank
assuming
you.
that goes through.
Yeah, we're hoping that'll
Because
pass.
we'll all benefit by that one. That's, can't say enough about it, and you're doing
great.
great work with it, and thank you.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. Well, that's it for today. We'll be meet together probably in a month or so.
Great, thank
And
you.
I'm really glad you came down and spent the time. John had to spend a lot of time here today. We had a number of guests today,
Yeah.
which is great. We want the community involved. Today is, I say the Audio Visual Club, but it's a media presentation group and run by Ms. Schwartz from the Abington High School. And I know Christine Howe's here, and Jack Malafronte, and Sean O'Brien, and Casey, and I don't even know who's here. I can't see people through the window, but I appreciate them getting involved here and trying to learn the system, because we want this to keep going generation after generation, and it's always great to get true information out. Nothing worse than people gossiping and talking what they don't know anything about. We try to go right to the sources and keep this alive. So if you'd like to see this segment, abingtoncam.org, abingtoncam.org. And as I like to say, please remember the St. Vincent de Paul and the Abington Food Pantry. They can always use your help. Any cash donations you can give, or any food, or anything at all, clothing, please think of them. They're right at the St. Bridget's School in the church area on Route 58. Again, Senator, thank you very much for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And Edmund and Justin, thank you again for your help, and hope everyone stays warm this winter. Thank you very much.